G'day YouTubers, and welcome to another episode in the Northern Moreton Bay series. In fact, welcome to the final episode in the Northern Moreton Bay series. It's taken a while, but we finally got here. This episode wraps up all the spots that I know of in the Northern Moreton Bay to fish. There's certainly a lot more than I know about, but what I provided in this series should get you started up in that area. You have to put in some of the hard yards. I'll give you a mark to start with, sound around it, and see if you can find the fish. Then it's all down to your fishing technique. Let's get started. Now this first mark I've got down as Shield Street Reef North, and while I haven't fished it myself, I have spoken to many people over the years that say that the Shield Street Reef is a good fishing spot. We'll just stop and have a look at the Shield Street Reef area on the Navionics map for a second. And you can see there's the rocky groin there with a cement walkway on top of it and all the reef around it. That should be a great area for targeting reef species from land-based. But there's also the opportunity to fish it from a boat on the ocean side, or at least the bay side. I've zoomed in here on the Navionics map so you can see the bottom contours. There's a reefy patch further out and a bit of a valley running in between them. Drop-offs all around the reefy patch. So I'd be going in there with the boat very carefully, because I'm not familiar with the area, so I'd be going in very carefully, at least at first, having a good sound around and anchoring up off the edge of the reef somewhere and casting back towards it. You'll have to spend a bit of time fishing it to work out what tides are going to work the best and which sides of the reef to fish on those tides. I just changed the colour palette on the Navionics app in case someone prefers the red. It doesn't stand out very well for me. I like the blue palette, but there you go, in case red works better for you. And finally for this area, just flipping back to Google Earth for a minute to have a look at that view. You can see the reef stands out really well on these aerial shots. Some shots are better than others. You have to look back through the history to find the really good ones. But this one's pretty good. It shows the Inshore reef and that patch of reef offshore as well. And I guess there's some degree of logic in the fact that this next mark is labelled Shield Street Reef South. Now I haven't fished these marks myself, so I'm not sure what they're about. I got the marks from the internet, I think, and they could mark the north and south ends of the reef where you find a fishing spot in between, or they could be a couple of spots on the reef. You'll need to get your sounder out and work that out once you're out there. On this one I've just got a notation of no info, try here. From memory I think I picked that up off a fishing forum where someone asked for a mark, someone else just said try this one. So I've jotted it down, don't know whether it's any good or not. Something to try if you're going past. I wouldn't go out of my way for this one. Again, no info on this mark, so this is another one that I wouldn't be going out of my way to check out, but if I was going past there, I'd certainly have the sounder out to have a look around. I don't have any information on this mark either. That's the one that's further out from the Marine Parade, John Oxley Park area. It's out from a group of rocks, so I'd give that a fair bit of credence that it might be worthwhile. I'd expect there could be a rocky outcrop further out in deeper water, but again, something you need to get your sounder out and have a look around. I wouldn't go out of my way to go there, but I certainly would be going out and having a look there if I was anywhere in the area. And this area is marked as rocks, and anywhere there's rocks there's going to be fish around. Be careful going in if you're not familiar with the area. Anywhere there's rocks there's likely to be ones coming up very shallow, very unexpectedly. So take it easy, take a good look around, have your sounder out and have your eyes open with your Polaroid glasses on. Go very slow and you should be fine. Get in there, have a look around it. I'm sure there'll be fish hanging out there somewhere. Just looking at that last mark in the Navionics app, you can see that it's right up over the reefy area in shallow water. In fact, from the colouring on that, it's in 0 feet at low tide, or at the tide datum at least. So it's not somewhere I'll be taking a boat. I might take a tinny in there at the top of the tide, but I'd probably fish further out, just off the edge of the reef and cast into the reef. That's my favourite way to fish around these types of reef. And just while we've got the Navionics open, let's have a look at these reefy patches off the end of McDonald Street. As you can see in the Navionics app, there's some not too far out, and you can also see them in the aerial view on the Navionics app. I don't have any marks on these. The marks I have are further out into the bay, but still straight off the end of McDonald Street, so probably part of the same reefy system. But I just wanted to draw your attention to these close-in ones in case you want to go and hunt around the area a bit for yourself. These next 4 marks in the same general area are some sort of reef patch. I've got one of them marked as just a reef patch, but 3 of them I've got marked as a rocky reef patch. So it doesn't matter what the structure is, it's some sort of reef, and any sort of reef is going to hold some fish. So again, in the area, I'd certainly be having a look at this one for a fish. It's quite a big area, so sound around it pretty thoroughly, and I'm sure you'll find some structure down there somewhere. All of the marks that are inside the oval that I've got flashing up there are down as reef or rocky reef. So what I expect has happened there is there's either a patchy reef or possibly even a long reef structure going all along that area. I suspect it's more likely to be patchy, but you have to get your sounder out and sound along it. There's certainly some structure in the area from the number of people that have reported it and shared their marks, but just whereabouts to fish on it, try the marks, start there and sound around, find out where the fish are holding out on the day. The green cross that I've got a little bit further out is also marked as a rocky reef. Now it could be part of the same structure and just isolated a lot further out, or it could be a mistake. I've separated that one out because it wasn't in the area of all the other marks, and I was a little bit suspect on that one. But if you're in the area, it wouldn't hurt to just chuff out there and have a sound around just to check it out. And finally, that mark that's furthest off the shore is not a fishing spot. I hope everyone's listening to what I've got to say about these marks, because this mark is there because it marks a corner of a green zone. I have the green zones done a different way in my software. I have them in a shaded area, but I put this mark up because it's important to stay outside this green zone, which makes it worth mentioning the point that's to the west of that, closer to the shore, is very close to the boundary of the green zone. It's just north of it, so if you're trying that spot, be very careful to stay north of the green zone. Now I'll just mention in passing that rocky outcrop on the shore in this area, although the southern half of it's in a green zone, it still looks as though the northern bit of it would be worth having a look around if you're wanting to do some shore-based fishing. I'll just take a minute to have a look at some of the historical aerial photography of the Scots Point area. Just bear in mind that a lot of what we're looking at here is in a green zone. You can see a couple of boats in the aerial photography that are fishing very close to the northern boundary of the green zone. As long as you stay outside it and make sure your bait doesn't drift into the green zone, you'll be safe. I mentioned it in a previous video, but I'll just reiterate it here. If the fisheries see you fishing on the edge of a green zone and you're actually casting into the green zone, they'll still book you. Or at least so I've been told. Now a quick look in the Navionics app at the bottom contours of a couple of those spots that are just north of the green zone. They look quite promising as spots to fish. And just finally, for the Google Earth history, here's some aerial shots of the spots that I have called Rhino, where I've given the marks. You can see the patchy reef there, and looking back in the history of it, you'll see some boats fishing all around those reefs. Just because other people are fishing it doesn't mean it's a good spot, but looking at that reef area, I reckon it should be, and it would be well worth going out there and giving that a go. To get this one out of the way first, I have this mark as a great spot for catching bream. I don't know where I got it from though, so the notation I have on it may not be accurate. In any case, it is irrelevant because it is now inside a green zone. Don't fish this one. I really should delete it from my collection. These next two I have marked down as reef, that is supposedly just outside the marine zone. Be careful on the southernmost one because it is quite close to the marine zone. So make sure you stay well clear. You don't want to get fined for fishing in a marine zone. This one's nearly straight out from the Clontarf jetty. Again, no information on it. If you're in the area, have a look around it. Can't remember where I picked it up, so may or may not be worth anything, this one. I picked up this mark from somewhere for sand crabs. I know there's a lot of good crabbing in the area. I've spoken to a lot of people that said they pull a lot of crabs out of the area. I'm not sure about any one particular mark for crabbing. I kept this one just as a basis to start with. If I ever get up there, I'll drop a pot in there and try it. These next two aren't fishing marks. I picked them up, someone's idea of where the green zone is. I put them into my GPS just to keep me out of the green zone if I ever get up there. But since then I've come up with a better thing for marking green zones on the GPS, or marking anything on the GPS. Nevertheless, they're still in the system, and they do keep you out of the green zone if you're aware of what these are. So these two marks, southern end of the green zone. These next three, and two of them are together where the green cross is, mark reefy patches that are outside the green zone. There's an awful lot of reef inside the green zone, and that is why there's a green zone there in the first place. Keep you out of the really good fishing spots on that reef. But there's a few patches outside the green zone, well worth having a go. Generally they put a green zone there because the fishing's great, so if you can fish close to it without actually transgressing into it, because there's no sense contributing to the government coffers when you don't have to, stay outside, have a go at the little reef patches that are close to it, and you should do all right. And finally, this mark is called Otter Rock. Shows up nicely on the bathymetry in the area. I'll put a shot of that up, and should be reasonable fishing. Anywhere the structure, particularly a rocky rise on the bottom, is worth checking out for fish. I'll be getting out there and having a good sound around that. And just to finish off, I'll tease you with some screenshots from the Navionics app showing you all that lovely reefy patches and bottom contours in the green zone. I don't know, they make green zones on some of the best fishing grounds ever. A lot of the fishing grounds that I used to love are now green zones, and I can't fish them anymore. I found new areas, and that's fine. Forced me out of some of my comfort zone and got me to look for some new areas. But it still irks me, and I'm not entirely sure that the green zones are worthwhile. I've read both sides of the arguments for and against having green zones, what good they do, how useless they are. Both sides of the arguments make some good points, and neither one's managed to convince me 100%. So just go with the flow, obey the law, and stay out of the green zones. Avoid the fine. All we can do. So this first point I've got marked down as weed along here, and I've recorded that for the possibility of getting some live squid for bait if I ever get up to fish this area. There's rocks on this mark, although I don't think it's a mark that you should be trying to fish in any sized boat. Little tinny might be alright to sneak your way in there, but Navionics is showing it as 0 water at the tide datum, so you're not going to have a lot of water there. There'll be enough at high tide, but you've probably got nothing there at low tide. The rocks will be either exposed or very close to the surface. I just wanted to stress that so you don't go charging in there too fast. These rocks are extremely shallow and probably best fished from shore. There's a bit of a drop off on the seaward side, but I really just think there's better places around if you have a larger boat. Kayaks and tinnies probably just fine. These next rocks here are a little bit deeper. You'll probably have something over 1 metre of water, even at the lowest tide. Doesn't mean to say you can go charging in there again, because even though there's an average of about 1 metre of water, there could still be some high spots. So take it easy and just work your way in there slowly until you become really familiar with the area. Again, deeper areas to the seaward side, and that's where you should be holding and fishing in towards the shallows. And again, more rocks, so you can consider the whole area around here full of rocks. About 1 metre of water over these according to the Navionics charts. So again, just be very careful. There can be high rocks, pinnacles anywhere. Like I was up at the Whitsundays a few years back, and I was warned about this rock, so I went to have a look at it in the boat, and yep, sure enough, in 20 odd metres of water, there's this pinnacle of rock that came up to within about 2 or 3 feet of the surface at high tide and actually broke at low tide. It was just like an upside down ice cream cone. really narrow, really high. But these sort of things can happen anywhere. Even in the shallow water, you'll get a big rock occasionally, or big lump of coral, big bommy, something like that. So do be careful. I mentioned Otter Rock a little while ago, but I've got this second mark here that's also down as Otter Rock, so I'm not sure which one's the true Otter Rock. If you're up in the area, have a sound around this one as well. I suspect the first one is the true Otter Rock because it really looks that way when you look at the contours on the bottom, but maybe there's something at this one as well. So again, another one I wouldn't go out of my way to look at, but if I'm going past it, I'll certainly have the sounder out and just have a bit of a hunt around and see if there is anything there. And this mark here is a shipwreck. I've put it in out of interest only, since it is in a green zone and you can't fish it. It's just interesting if you're going past and you want to see what the shipwreck looks like on your sounder, have a look at it. I don't know how much of it's left. It may be entirely covered by sand now. If you're in the area, you can have a look at it to try out your sounder. I'm always interested to look at these things on my sounder, just to check my settings on the sounder to see how good the image is. Well, that's it. Thank you for taking the time to watch it. I hope you got something out of the series. I will be doing another episode on Palmerston Passage because someone's asked me about that. I don't have a lot of experience in that area. I fished it from land-based when I was very young, and I fished it out of a tinny in my early 20s out of Torval Point when my parents used to go up there a lot. But I can give you some general ideas around those areas, and I'll set up to do some data mining on the net and see if I can pick up any marks through Palmerston Passage. With Christmas coming on, life has been getting extremely busy, and if it wasn't for the bad weather, I'd be flat out keeping up the videos at the moment. I have dropped back from doing a major video and a minor video every week to just doing the one video every week, and even that's a bit of a struggle some weeks. Hopefully things will calm down a little bit in the new year. Once I've done the Palmerston Passage video, I want to go on and finish off the boating tips series that I started. In the rather naive expectation that I could run two major series at once, it just can't be done, or at least I can't do it. I don't have the time. Now, if this was a full-time job, certainly you could do it, but it's not. It's just a little hobby on the side. So anyway, once again, thank you for watching the series. I do hope you've enjoyed it. Until next time, good fishing.